Hi, and welcome to another edition of The Growth Engine with Ryan and Trice. What's up, buddy?
Hey, it's busy, as I always say. It's busy when you're a go-getter, you got a full calendar, you got your plate full all the time, right?
That's right. That's right. And today we've got a great topic because we're focused on growth, obviously. And one of the obviously big drivers in business with growth is related to acquisition. And this is a topic I know that is close to you. So why don't you dive in?
Oh, that's what I'm busy doing right now. So, somebody asked me yesterday, why am I so busy with business selling and acquisitions right now? And I explained to him that what happens is the companies that have money available, or business owners that have money that are available, like their businesses have done well this year, they have cash, right?
Right.
One of the things they look at doing is possibly making an acquisition before the end of the year and avoiding a little Uncle Sam taxes, right?
Mhm.
And so the selling process or the buying process can last. I mean, it can be a 6 month period. I mean, on
For
the
sure.
average, between 4 and 6 months when you start, looking for a business and then you find one, it could take, easily 3 or 4 months to get that business closed and get that acquisition done. So
Absolutely.
I do work in this area. I find oftentimes when I'm consulting directly one-on-one with CEOs, and they're trying to re-energize, sometimes we discover that they're not going to re-energize. And that's not anything against them. They're just done. They're burnt out. They're not passionate about their business anymore, and it's time to take cash in on what they've done and turn it over to new blood and new energy that is passionate and ready to go.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times people do that for the sake of their employees, for their customers, and for themselves, and all those are the right reasons to do it. So
Yeah, absolutely. I've lived through this as a CMO, being involved with onboarding new businesses that have been acquired, been involved with organizations that are making acquisitions or trying to make acquisitions. Um, it's a really unique process. It can be very, very difficult. It can be very stressful, but you're exactly right. I think for a lot of people that maybe are aging out or thought maybe, in a lot of cases, people think their family are going to buy businesses and then families aren't really into it or up for it, either one. And they realize, finding a great partner to make an acquisition is a great choice. Now the timing is, you're absolutely right. The timing is flush right now for buyers. Profits are at an all-time high. Like 25% is the measurable number right now as an average that they're saying corporations are profitable. So, which is higher than it's ever been. Normally it's, high teens, low 20s, and those are really, really good years, frankly. Um, the inflation, sorry, that's what I was looking for. The inflation has caused a lot of that, right? Companies
right.
have reaped the benefit of high pricing and high demand and low supply, and which creates a lot of profitability. They've also, cut costs in some places, obviously, as well to help with that. But either way, there's a lot of money out there, and if they roll into next year, they're going to pay taxes on it. So,
Right.
one a great way to get rid of it and expand your business, which is really our point here, is to make an acquisition. So let's talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
So for listeners, let me point out kind of like where we're coming from on this. If you are, it doesn't matter where you're at. If you are, a creative person who is part of the marketing department, or if you're a CMO, VP, own a business, like this is kind of for everybody, because it's good to understand this process and the things that I'm going to talk about, because they can be a part of what you help do for your company, or it can be something that you personally want to do in the future or even now. So we're going to talk about some of those scenarios today. But yeah, we're in the last 6 months of the year, and it can be very busy between now and October, because of the selling cycle and the due diligence that has to happen in an acquisition. If you are much past, late September, you really are not going to get it done this year. And so
Probably not. Yeah.
that's why I'm busy now, is we have a lot going on. I have several digital agencies for sale right now. Personally, if you are interested in buying a digital agency, let me know. I've got I've got some opportunities for you, and it's some different price ranges. And so just contact me or DM me. But what I want to talk about is growth. This is the growth engine. We want to talk about growth and what does an acquisition mean, to your business right now. And so I want to start with the why. Why would you do this? Because we spend a lot of time talking about strategy and,
Mhm.
positioning, branding, and all these things, right? One of the last things that a marketing department thinks about is, you know, you're knocking on the CEO's door and saying, "Hey, have you thought about an acquisition?" And if they have, the last thing that CEO usually did was go to other people in their business and say, "I'm thinking about an acquisition." They don't say it. They hide it. They want to keep it very secret. But some companies turn in this into a part of their business model, an
Yes.
acquisition part, and the larger companies for sure. But the why, I want to talk about the why first. And the why can be they want to grow profits. They need more profits. They want to grow profits. They can find a business that's more profitable than they are percentage wise and increase their profits, learn why they're profitable and adopt some of those secrets, some of those efficiencies and how
Yep.
they're running their business. It can be that they want to take care of their current business better and they just can't find the staff or they don't have the equipment or the different things it takes to run it. They
Sure.
need to expand it and they need to do it now and they need help and support now. And by making an acquisition, sometimes you could do that a lot faster and get good quality people instantly without having to go through the pains of another 6 months to 2-3 years to be able to acquire that same amount of talent
Yeah.
and infrastructure.
Sure.
Well, the last thing, real quick, the last thing is a business owner wants to grow their personal wealth. They want to grow their portfolio,
Yep.
and so it can be for all three of these reasons.
For
So
sure. Yeah, I would say the one for me, and it kind of touches on what you're saying, geographic footprint. If you're a company where you've got a strong brand in a geography and you want to get into an adjacent geography, acquisition is a great way to do that, obviously, versus organic, which is much slower. A lot of investment up front to not necessarily get revenue at all, let alone profit. So an acquisition is a great way to buy revenue and profit potentially as well. Um, I think that when you're if you're a national business and geography, location kinds of things are part of the factor for it can be a competitive reason too. A lot of people will say, "Oh, well, I got a really strong competitor in a different part of the country. I'm not as strong there. I'm going to focus on acquisitions in that, you know, region with the idea that I can bolster my whole offering by doing it so that way." So, yeah, that for me, that's the one that's been really, really common, that I've seen a lot of. But you're right. All those reasons are, shareholder value is one of the biggest factors, obviously, right? So, how do you add to that?
yeah, and if the shareholders won, and
Yeah.
it's the one guy,
Shareholder
then
could be
it
one
is.
person,
Yeah,
or it could be
yeah,
a whole family. If it's a generational thing, it's a lot of
right.
factors there. Or we're not talking about publicly traded companies here. We're talking about small, medium-sized businesses. In most cases, those are families or corporations, and the shareholders could be employees. There's a
Right.
lot of elements there. But in most cases, when we're talking about really small, under $10 million, we're talking about one person probably, or a couple people.
Right.
So,
I
yeah.
want to go looking at the buyer's journey and going to the very very beginning. And the very beginning of the buyer's journey, there's an aha moment there, and that aha moment most business owners don't have, but when they get that aha moment, they turn into entrepreneurs. It's kind of like the moment of truth thing, right? And so basically, what happens is they're running a company, they're making, themselves are taking home between 100, 200,000, sometimes more, sometimes higher, whatever. They're taking home a certain amount of pay, right? And they are profitable, And so they're taking money that they're making now, and they have choice. They can reinvest it in the company. They can spend it on themselves, take disbursements, take it out, spend it on themselves, go do stuff, fun stuff, right? And
Yep.
or they can invest it in another business. Well, they usually don't think about that option.
Nope.
That's not in their plan. Most people don't have an exit strategy. They don't have a
Mhm.
growth strategy as far as like having that piece of it in it. This
100%.
is so far outer space to most small business owners. And the reason why is because they have worked so hard at getting this business profitable. They
Yes.
just want to enjoy it because it's now making money and it's profitable. And I got money, and by God, I'm going to get that house I deserve. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I've been making all these promises to all these people for
Yep.
years about getting new trucks and fleets and rebranding and new website. And
Kids in college, whatever.
it's all this stuff that's in their head,
Yeah.
and they never like just stop for a second and go and really understand the money part of this. And the money part of it is if you have 100 to anywhere between 100 and $500,000 um, in the bank, you can still get that house pretty quickly. You're talking about, you can still do all the things I just said,
Mhm.
but instead of going immediately into taking disbursements or to spending that money and getting and buying things in the company, take that money over here and buy another company. And we'll talk about what kind of companies might make sense, right? But buy another company where the business owner over there is making 200 to 300 up to $500,000 himself or herself. They're making that. And when you buy them, you can take on their salary or the money they're making and their owners discretionary owners benefits. You can bring on that money yourself.
Yeah.
You can then instantly afford your personal stuff, that vacation you wanted, that house, that new car. You can do that within the next 12 months. You can do that and pay back a big chunk of the money you just borrowed through like an SBA loan or through your own money in cash, and pay it back with the profits from both businesses.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer when a successful business owner has gotten to a point where they've proven they're good at what they're doing, that they go out and make this change and change their lives and everybody around them.
Yes, 100% that's true. You have a great opportunity as a business owner, and you're right. Most don't. This isn't like a thought every year. What should we do with the extra profit we made? Um, it's something that probably comes up a few times in their life if their business is that successful. And but it is a really, really great alternative to paying taxes on that money. And it offers you an opportunity to expand your business in ways you can't even imagine. And I think that's where the real opportunity here is, and the real growth obviously is. You can acquire something that helps you become the business you always dreamed about being. You know, if you're $10 million and you always dreamed about being 25, well, you made an acquisition of a $5 million company and now you're 15, but you also now have combined strength. And now combined strength may give you, that's the strategy portion of this, right?
Mhm.
That combined strength may give you the manpower, assets, and resources to grow to $25 million in the next 5 years, right? Like that's not just the dollars and cents of this, but also I picked somebody that's perfect for me, great matchup, teams are going to work well together, whatever that case may be, completely different market, whatever, right? Like either way, it's a good fit. And now you have combined strength
Yeah.
and take on bigger competitors or whatever, right? And expand your market. So there's a huge opportunity here.
Yeah. You said it right. Like it almost becomes like a no-brainer when you think about the tax deduction. Okay. So you don't pay less taxes.
For sure.
I'm investing in increasing my own salary. And this is going to be something that I'm going to be able to either adopt their models or, bring into mine and make even more profitable. And I'm growing my entire business portfolio so that if I sell
Yeah.
down the road, I'm going to get a larger
Yeah.
payback and ROI than what I bought this for. And so I recently saw a SaaS company. They were a smaller SaaS company, under 15 employees, and they made an acquisition. They had enough profit, like I'm talking about. They could afford to buy somebody 4 times bigger than them. And they did. The owners retired in that business, or are going to retire, and they bought, and they brought their software in and added it on as modules to their software,
Wow.
and immediately went from, under 15 employees to like 200,
That's
and
nuts.
just blew it, and are going to blow. They basically, it was an industry dominating move,
Yeah.
and now they own that business. Now, not everybody's got that kind of
And they're probably in a sector now they were never in before, and like totally changed the dynamic.
it it just made them a powerhouse. I mean, the company was in the same niche area, and it just added a component and brought all their customers into the fold. And so,
Yeah.
wow, I mean, I've always admired this business owner. He's just incredibly smart at a young age, and I saw that move that was made, and I was just like, okay, he gets it. He gets it. And that's a huge, I won't say it's the number one mistake small business owners make. I won't go that I want to say that, but as soon as you start
It's
making
not.
profits,
Yeah.
that's when you should start thinking about that next move and what makes sense. And if you talk to an investment broker who sells stocks and bonds and all kinds of stuff,
Private
he's
equity.
not going to tell you to go buy a business.
No.
He's not going to tell you to go do this. He doesn't make money in commissions that way.
100% never going to say that.
Do not do that. Only a business consultant that's been through that entrepreneurial journey side of things will tell you that this is a no-brainer, and it smokes any of those other options.
Yeah, it's funny because you alluded to this with your reasons why, but what you're talking about now is valuation, right? So your company has a valuation for people out there who may not be involved in this process, right? You sell something, you have a customers, you have physical assets, you have manpower, all these resources, right? Because of all of that, you have some valuation that says your company's worth X. And when you're really, really small and you're a startup, they make up a number. They literally just pull it out of thin fucking air. You're worth $10 million. Okay. Because you have potential. But later on, once you start selling and hiring and having relationships and all the things, they have ways to figure, there's a formula and they figure it out. And you're right. If you can overnight change the dynamic of my revenue stream is totally different, my assets are totally different, my manpower is totally different, my customer base is totally different, my profitability is totally different, all of a sudden your valuation is of course totally different. It's completely refigured. And so you go from, your investment now, obviously, whatever that number is, adds to the current valuation of your company, but it's not really about what you pay. It's about how much this other company's worth. And you may pay what it's worth. You may overpay, you may underpay. All those things happen. But your combined assets are worth more than your separate assets because there's implied leverage. Right. And then also time as you go forward in your career managing these businesses, this whole thing amplifies. And your ROI, frankly, you might make ROI just on more profitability and revenue opportunities and the actual leverage of running these businesses. You might pay everything off you have to borrow to get these businesses, and the liquidity you might create there is paid for. But the other real ROI comes at the end. If sometime you want to exit the business, it's just now worth so much more than what it would have been on your own in that same time period, because you just amplify everything together. So,
yeah. And I think on the next episode, we'll probably talk about business buying, and that'll give a little bit more insight on that piece of it.
Yeah.
But it's relevant. When you're selling, you're also thinking about, when you're buying, you're also thinking about selling. they work hand in hand, and it changes the way that it kicks in that entrepreneurial thing, right? Um, so it's not just entrepreneurship is not owning one business. That's not entrepreneurship. Um, that's a business owner, and sometimes it's owning a job. So we talked about that in the past. But I want to talk about this thing that we've mentioned in the last one or two episodes, which is if you're a marketer, and you have been tasked with a certain percentage of growth for the next year in your
Mm.
marketing strategy, this is definitely for you, man. Like this is definitely for you.
Mm.
This is a conversation. If you got the guts to go into the president business owner's office and talk about this topic, because you can help the company do this.
Yeah.
And I've got a friend of mine. I'll give you an example of this. I got a friend of mine who calls out to me the other day. He's been hired by a large roofing company to go out and find other small roofing businesses that um, didn't even know they wanted to sell, but they're done. Basically, the guy's done. He was running a crew. He's been doing it. All businesses are hard to run, and there's a lot of roofers out there that
Yep.
they don't mind doing the work, but they don't like the business part of it. It's a lot, and the licensing and all this other stuff. So um, basically, their opportunity is to find those people, and there's a lot of roofing companies. I mean, there's a lot of roofers. Find those guys, right, that are and go, you know what? If you don't like doing all this, we have all the people to do that internally. We can bring you into our mix and treat you like a business owner in what you're going to make. And let me show you what that looks like. And marketers, their role in this piece of it was to understand this dynamic like it's a campaign. It's a
Mm-hmm.
it's a it's a portion. It's part of your marketing strategy, and it's its own bucket over here, right? Acquisitions, and to treat it like a campaign, they have developed some really great collateral. So one pagers that talk about the benefits of doing this if you're a small business owner and being acquired. All the neat things like upfront money. So if they're backed up at all, if they owe people money, anything like they can immediately get out of trouble, right? They can help them with any of that debt. They can get
Yeah.
lump sums of money to go buy a house with, like buy a car. They can immediately get paid the same amount, or in most cases, better than what they were making and taking home. And we'll absorb your crew and take care of your crew and give them benefits they weren't getting. So
Yeah.
marketing, instead of marketing your products and services, now you're marketing your culture, you're marketing your company in a way to attract new people. And I love doing this. I did this at a company where I was in charge of marketing their culture. And you can now go to the website and online presence and get things prettied up there. Have pages on your website that are directly for this persona, this person, directly talking to them,
Yeah.
interviewing people whose companies you've acquired, talking to those business owners, getting video, promoting that, figuring out how to use that video with your sales team. And this guy's role is so cool. And I know marketing departments oftentimes are in charge of like the direct mail campaigns that go out and send direct mail to business owners all year long and try to get their interest in selling to them and and going directly into and folding into their business mix.
Yeah. I don't look at this as much of a marketing function as I do a strategy function, but that's because I operate in both worlds. So I have clients and people that I've worked for in the past where they want strategic analysis. And I look at that strategic analysis very much as a marketer to start, meaning what's your brand like, and what's your competition, and just looking at and trying to understand your situation and how you're creating value for customers. But then when I start moving into the strategic part, I start looking at like, how are you serving the market? Where are your growth opportunities? And ultimately, I say some of the exact same things as sort of a strategic consultant and say like, hey, look, I'll give you an example. If for a lot of businesses, whether if they're in some kind of industry where they have distributors or they have a channel partner or something like that, right? Well, their growth strategy comes from, you got to get stronger in other locations. You got to find more of those people in parts of the country or world where you're not
Yeah.
doing business right now, right? How do you do that? And whether you should or shouldn't then becomes the question. And, but it's exactly the same as I look at your business and I think, how are you going to grow it? Well, you can get better at sales and marketing. And then you can also serve more customers. And where are they? And they might just be in a part of the world you're not. Well, why not go there? If you're, if you're $40 million and you want to get to 80, you're going to have to go there. Like, that is it, or you're one of the smallest fish in the pond. You're going to have to acquire somebody so you can become a bigger fish.
Yeah.
It's really simple. Like, you want to fight for one of the top 3 positions in the marketplace for your industry, you're going to have to swallow some guys that are in the middle.
So acquisition is the fastest way to do it, right?
100% right. And so it's really looking at this the way we would, it's growth strategy. How do I grow my business? Well, you can grow it through sales and marketing. You can grow it by doing better at what you do and serving people better and finding, savings in there by doing things better and serving more customers. But at the end of the day, you might have to just go out and be like, I got to buy a big customer segment.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a way to get your foot in the door.
So we talked in the last episode, we talked about the best ROI is with your existing customer base, existing
Absolutely.
customers, and marketing to them gives you your best return.
Yeah.
So the pressure's on and the heat's on for the marketing department. I turn to existing customers, right? They never let me down. And so by going and buying and acquiring these other customers is a way to win big fast, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about, like, if your marketing strategy or sales strategy is, certain percentage growth, well, you might be able to hit that 12-month strategy in one single campaign of acquiring a company.
Mm-hmm.
And you acquire them and you just hit your 12-month growth strategy instantly and more.
Yeah, your cross-sell strategy might have just changed completely overnight.
Yes.
Yes.
And now you really got some cash to go after, because a lot of times those people haven't been cross-sold very well, or haven't been cross-sold the things you're going to sell them, right? Or offer to them.
And vice versa. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I want to break over and talk about the how. We talked about the why. Let's talk about the how. And I don't want to go too far into this because I don't want to go too far into the accounting side of things, but most people think they can't do this. They think they got to have the funds and everything.
They're going to cost lawyers too much money, to even get to the process. Yes.
Right.
That's everybody's fear is, how much is it going to cost me just to get to a place where I can know if I can or should?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that piece of it. So most companies are bought with an SBA loan. 95% or more, depends on the year, right? Of businesses are bought with an SBA loan. And so SBA loans, you only have to have 10% down. And of course, their credit approval, and they do a financial background on you. But it's 10%. So if you wanted to buy $1 million business and you had $100,000, you can do it. You can put it. You can go buy it.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to buy, you had $200,000, you can buy $2 million company. And so somebody asked the other day, can I use my 401k for it? That's yes. You can liquidate your parts of your 401k and do it if you have it right now.
Whether you should or not is not the question we're trying to answer. We are not financial planners.
I'll answer it. You absolutely should. If you find a good business and you believe in your business abilities, you absolutely will make more than you're making and investing in your 401k. Absolutely will. And you can't sell your 401k for 4 to 10 times, after you get ready to sell it. You can't sell it and make money like that. You can't compound money like that in a 401k. You can make money in a 401k. You can't make those kinds of chunks of money in that kind of time, because you can in essence take a company, buy it, double its revenue in some cases in a couple of years, turn around and sell it. And you're selling it for, almost, you definitely 4 times what you bought it for. Depends on your profit, but if you keep your profit good and you do it that much, you're going to make a lot more money. And so on that piece of it, a good purchase, a good acquisition is just a really solid investment for your business, for you personally. And it only takes that 10% down. There are a lot of other buyers. There's cash buyers out there. They're rare, and it's rare that they ever want to spend all their money and just dump
Why
it right
would
in your
you?
lap.
Why would you?
It
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah. I think that's funny. My wife and I talk about this all the time. Interest rates are going up, but if the interest rate on something is low and it's guaranteed,
Yeah.
and that rate is less than, let's even say, what your money in the bank, your cash in the bank, and like an S&P fund, really something basic, right? That interest rate is actually lower than that. So it costs you money to
Right.
pay cash.
It
So
does.
there's a lot of cases where you're like, hey, yes, it makes total sense to do it because you own it outright. You're done. All the tax implications are much more straightforward. However, there are other opportunities where you're like, actually, in the long run, borrowing here and not taking from here is a good move, especially if the business itself is paying back the loan, not you personally.
Yeah.
Which is the way it should be, frankly. So
Yeah. I,
anyway,
there's a lot of people that when I tell them the process of buying a business and the money
yeah,
it takes, there's a lot of people that go, you mean I could buy a business right now? And,
yeah,
and I'm like, yeah, what are you
yeah.
waiting?
As you've gotten more and more into this, I've had a ton of questions because I've been involved in M&A, but it's a small business corporation type entity buying another
Yeah.
small business corporation type entity. So it's a different process. I've not been the owner. So, like it's really been interesting to talk to you about just how the process works more than anything else and how funding works specifically. So,
Right.
yeah.
We should do that in a future episode. What the whole, like, what does that process, what does it look like?
Yeah, we could get into it.
In just a high level.
Yeah.
But the other thing, we touched a little bit on some of this, but I want to talk about like the opportunities of a current business. Why it kind of goes back to the why a little bit, but um, when you buy a business, though, it's what you do with it. So you can buy a business right now and you can keep running it as is. You don't have to bring it into your business in full. It can operate as its own corporation. You can bring it into your corporation. You can keep
Yep.
it as a DBA. You can keep it separate. So I've seen cases where in cities like Cincinnati, where I saw some guy who he bought two other businesses. They were his competitors, and he kept it
Mm.
under their names. So he was getting majority. He was getting like 70% of the market share. So when somebody needed a quote,
Mhm.
one of his companies would go out there with one of their sales teams, and they would quote. And then if they didn't like that, they would call, the other guy, the other company, the other guy, right? He would go out and give him a quote, and then again maybe like three bids, like a third guy, right? They would always have like at least one, if not two or three out of those bids they would have,
That's
and a lot of times
wow.
it was three out of three, and they would be laughing, going, "I wonder if we're going to get the business."
And,
It's like,
and I'm guessing the customers didn't have a lot of visibility to the fact that they were owned by the same people
no. So
personally.
you can keep it that way. Also, if a company has a really good brand or just name recognition, a lot of times they'll keep it. I
Yep.
am personally more of a fan of rolling the name over and doing a name change for the sake of brand power for the greater good type of
Yeah.
thing, where you could have more brand power with more money by consolidating. And I see change as good. A lot of people don't. But I do understand those that don't want to change it. They've got a name. They've been the name in a specific geography for so long that when people think of whatever it is,
Yep.
that's the first brand or name that
I
pops in their
I
head.
will tell you this, my experience having gone years of working for a corporation that acquired small businesses in bulk, 3 or 4 a year, mostly to try to create some, just I alluded to earlier, some geography, right? Some coverage. I think a lot of things that people don't think about when they buy, depending on their reasoning for buying, if you're buying a strong business that has great revenue and great profit, guess what? It is not going to be cheap. That's the seller's holy grail of we're doing everything right, and now it's time to get out, and we're going to get a premium. Just like selling a home, market value is really, really high. It's a great time to sell. It's a horrible time to buy. However, if a business is strong, there's still a lot of good reasons to do it and to buy. And and one of them could be brand. And I think business owners, one of the things they don't in the M&A process do very well is bring in a marketer. And this was part of my role when I would in this M&A process was bring in a marketer and have them do competitive analysis. Figure out the position of the company that's being acquired versus the company that is doing the acquisition. Look at the competitive landscape, figure it out, have a really good understanding of all of that before you make an emotional choice of pulling the trigger on this, because you want to know, if you're the CEO and you're spending jack on this thing, that it's going to work. All the pieces fit, it answers all the questions, it fits financially, and lo and behold, it's the strongest player in the market, or it's number 2 in the market, and you put you two together, you're going to be number 1. Whatever the competitive landscape is, know it, because most people don't think about this for marketing, and this is what you and I talk about and think about all the time. And it's your marketing people are the only ones who are going to know that. The owner, I'll tell you this for a fact, the owner selling the business is going to convince you they got a fantastic brand, customers love them, retention is high. The numbers may even show that. However, go find out for yourself. Just do a little bit of research, because you can figure it out. You can get at least a good lay of the land. That's all I'm talking about here. You can't, it's not like finances. It's not as easy as cut and dry, but you can get a good lay of the land, and it'll help not make an emotional decision. You can say, yes, this is a good move.
You might understand this piece of it, Trice, is I have been in a company where a purchase was made, and I was trying not to be angry or disappointed or furious, all these things, the emotions that I had, because the CEO never asked me about any of the things you just brought up.
Oh, yeah.
And it bothered me a lot because I thought it was a bad purchase. Now, it may not matter what I thought, right? It didn't, obviously.
100% it did not. No.
It did not, right?
No.
But I was the one who had to take this and do something with it once he 100%. Bought it.
Yes.
And so I thought that because of the responsibility I would have, that I should have been able to do the market research.
Yeah.
There are other businesses that were for sale that I knew about. Now, I didn't know all the details of it, but just from a branding standpoint only, or a alignment, there were other things that I would have thought about. And so I think you have to really understand and not make that emotional decision. And because, let's say, a competitor comes to you and says, and he's crying and saying, my wife's got cancer, I'm behind on my bills, and this happens. This is a very common one. And I need, will you acquire my business, please? And he pays for it. And he probably pays a fair price for that business. Sometimes maybe not. That'd be a dirtbag thing to do. But but in that case, that money maybe could have been better spent other places, I hate to say, so it's a tough one. And I understand, and I've seen these situations where it's an emotional decision when you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
I'm like, there might have been better. So anyway, I don't want to, I'm just include important decision makers on your C-suite if you can.
Yeah, for sure you do. I mean, there's a reason that you said this earlier, CEOs keep this really, really close to the chest. And there's a reason why your C-suite's all under NDA, because you share secrets with them about your business. This is one of them. You have to bring all those people in, because you really need each of them to do their part of the job in the M&A process, not just your CFO and not just operations, but human resources needs to look at the people, marketing needs to look at the landscape and understand the market for no other reason than when they take this over, you're going to ask them to grow that business. How are they going to do it? And you're right. A lot of times, depending on your reasoning for buy, the why we talked about earlier, a lot of people have a need to get into another business for a reason um, that isn't necessarily related to all the things we talked about. And so my perspective as a marketer saying this is a really weak brand or it's really beat up in the marketplace, it's not number one, it's really crap, don't pay a premium, like whatever.
Right.
That might not mean anything at all. And to your point, early in my career, I was not involved at all. I would get it a week or two before the acquisition was final. And it was really a branding exercise at that point. How do we put these things together? But later in my career as a CMO, it was, look, we can bring a lot more to the table. Let's just understand their digital footprint, their
Right.
social media footprint. There's just a lot of assets there you're not tracking. If you don't put down on the sheet that says, I'm buying your website, I'm buying your social media, well, guess what? You don't own them.
I would, and just kind of going back on something you said, I kind of stopped because of the liabilities involved. You open yourself up big time as soon as you tell the first person if you're going to acquire a company. I kind of limit it down to the people who I think might need to be brought in once you get to the point where you're kind of like, I'm pretty much going to pull the trigger on this. I'm pretty much ready to do this, unless somebody says something that is going to sway me not to. But
you're definitely under LOI, letter of intent.
The people I would talk to would be like my COO operational, my CFO financial, and my CMO.
Yep.
I
agree with that.
That's it. I probably wouldn't talk to my chief revenue officer because they're going to just benefit like crazy. The HR, they're going to wrap into current stuff. There's always
playbook,
a lot of stuff that you have to figure out. There's a lot. They have actually a lot probably to do technically to get wrapped up and figuring out how to transition stuff.
A lot of liability there. Yeah.
A lot of pain, but it's going to happen no matter who they buy. But those positions specifically come into play, I think. But at the end of the day, if the owner makes that decision, they do, and you got to roll with it.
Yep.
And those people are going to be responsible for doing a lot. But
yeah.
Real quickly on the opportunities, expanding your current business. So that's, as I said, standing alone, keeping it by itself in its own entities. One, expanding your current operation, bringing them into the fold. And that usually happens because you need capacity. You need capacity for your current client base is one big thing. Sometimes it's to offer more services that you don't have expertise in, but this company does. So you can, your cross-selling opportunities are opened up. Yep. And then one you brought up was, I have territory. I can own territory. Yep. And I thought this earlier that I know the situation where somebody had an exclusivity through a manufacturer.
Yes.
And a competitor was trying to get that exclusivity from them.
And the only way they could get it was
who had the most territory.
Yeah.
And so whoever had the most territory was going to win. And so my client was looking for, I need to gain territory. How can I do it quickly before I lose this exclusivity? Because it's going to mean a lot to my future growth. It's part of our strategy.
Yes.
So that does come into play as well.
Absolutely. I've actually seen it where we didn't have a relationship with the number one manufacturer in a certain category. But if we make an acquisition in a specific state that has a relationship there, and now we're able to start building a relationship with that company because we have an inroad, we don't lose our rights in that certain state, and not only that, now we can open the dialogue, and turned out to be incredibly beneficial to both sides because there was a great partnership there. And you're exactly right. That's a really good reason to make an acquisition that most people will never think of, because manufacturing and distribution, it's a unique space, and regardless of what kind of market it is, it's a really unique relationship there between the manufacturer, the distributor, the end customer. Potentially could be other people involved in there too, so yeah, it's complex.
Yeah. Last point I had on here was more of like understanding a little bit of maybe strategy behind what's the good fit, and I hear the first thing that somebody thinks about when they go to make an acquisition is, I want to buy a company just like mine, to easy to bring in, similar services, similar everything. I just and that they think growth. Sometimes that's fine,
Yeah.
if the price is low enough. I don't like it.
'Cause there's not a lot of leverage there.
I don't love it most of the time because that's just more of what you currently got, and it doesn't offer enough expandable opportunity,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
especially if it's in the same geography,
Yeah,
right? Like
which it is most of the time. It's not the
100%.
situation
Yeah,
like the company you
exactly
work
correct.
for, and
Yeah.
I love those situations because
Yeah, they're very unique.
yeah,
It's not normal. You're right. Typically, it's I'm the number 3 player in the market, and I've been approached by the number 2 player to get acquired, and
right.
together we will be as big or bigger than the number 1 player. But at the same time, we're not talking huge scale.
Yeah,
And yeah, you're right. There's not a lot of leverage opportunities there. Your valuation isn't going to go through the roof because all of a sudden you're completely different. It's incremental.
yeah. I want to
And
get,
there's a lot of cultural fit problems sometimes there too.
well,
But anyway, you go ahead.
no, I was going to go there too. Yeah, about it. I was thinking there's got to be like this X factor. There's got to be this thing that's you. What is the extra? What's the extra? What's something special you're getting with this purchase? What's the extra component that your current customers or employees are going to get when this acquisition's made? Is there going to be this thing like, you didn't sell, this service or product, and it's been just going to your competitors or a partner, referral partner, but
Mhm.
you're going to make this acquisition. Now you can bring that all in house and you're going to get this. It's an expertise you don't have that you're going to get, that's going to make everybody really happy and
Yes.
and drive revenue. And I love companies that do that. So when I look for, a good acquisition that's good for the buyer and the seller, I like those mechanics. But the piece that you just said was going to be the wrap up point for me today, is culture.
100%. Really, really tough.
Yeah.
It's 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 an immeasurable thing. You really you can get a feel, but the truth of the matter is you got to get past the owner selling the business and get as close to the other people, and that's really going to be hard to do because of all the reasons we talked about. People are not going to share, especially sellers, because they don't want to scare everybody. But you got to get a feel for that culture, and can it be a fit? And do you have a good culture? It's a great opportunity for yourself to really look at your own business and be like, hey, are we the kind of people want to come work for? Like,
Right.
are we?
So
So
there's a tip I have in this piece of it that really can change, open eyes and change things.
yeah.
Is so the company who's selling, that's going to be acquired, the company that's selling, I have to have the business owners, or the buyer and the seller, they have to get together. They have to talk. I talk a lot about their chemistry. And oftentimes people ask, like, why do you care? It's not going to be their company anymore. They're not going to be there. Like, they're going to be gone. The reason why the chemistry is important is for many, many reasons. One of the biggest ones is, if the chemistry is good between a buyer and a seller, that means that the buyer is getting along with the sellers in a way that the current employees kind of understand and get along with that owner. And
Yeah.
so when that person steps in, they already kind of like, they already feel good together. Like, they already kind of like, they're the same type of people. Like, they get along, they know how to talk to each other. It's natural. It's good conversation, right? If it blends really naturally when the buyer and the seller get together the first time they meet, and sometimes second, third, and fourth, fifth times, like sometimes they get really like, almost to become friends, and
Mhm.
sometimes. But the closer they are together, the more they get along, the more you have an indicator that they're going to be good, and they're going to be just fine with the
Yeah.
staff and the people.
Yep. Yeah.
That's what I've noticed. You don't have to get to the people. You don't have to meet anybody in the company. So it's hard to see culture if that company hasn't promoted culture very well. It's hard to see it. And you
Yeah.
can ask what it is, but most people don't even know how to describe their culture other than go to
Absolutely.
their core values, which were done by a CEO by himself in a room. It wasn't
Mhm.
team. So we talked about that in past episodes.
Absolutely.
That is a key indicator of what's going to happen. When you avoid this chemistry, what happens a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, is the new owner takes hold of the company and it doesn't go well.
Yeah. I like where your head's at a lot on this because um I've seen it more the other way, where it's a struggle, it's a fight, it's very legal and tough business, and it's two people jockeying for position on the price at the end of the day. We're buying, we're gonna beat you up on everything that's wrong with your business and why it's not valuable, and you're gonna sugarcoat the hell out of it and tell us all the reasons why it is valuable, and because we're just both jockeying for the difference between where we think it should be. And I love the idea, especially in small business where one person is selling to one person. It is really valuable, for the buyer, especially because you get a fantastic feel of everything in growing a relationship with the person you're buying from. Also, in many cases, as people out there may or may not know, sellers don't get paid off all the time right up front. They've got multi-year payouts that make it better for the buyer. In which case, they are typically contractually obligated to help that business in any way, shape, or form during that time period. So it's best you have a good relationship with that person, because you may have to call them and say, tell me about this situation, tell me about this customer, tell me about this employee, whatever. And you want the truth, you want honest, transparent types of stuff, because that's what's better for you to make a decision. And if you don't have the kind of relationship where you're transparent with each other and you have some good rapport, you're not going to get that. And it's going to make it harder. And you're right, it makes it hard to onboard yourself in that new company. And if you're trying to merge cultures together, it's incredibly difficult and takes years to get that right. I've seen that firsthand, where there's a lot of people, they don't want to let go of their brand, even if their brand sucks and it's 20 people and you're 500. They don't want to let it go. They feel like that's who they are, and it takes a long time to help them understand, no, actually, you're this guy, and there's a ton of benefit to being this guy. And it takes a while to internalize that, as people. And so, yeah, the better off the relationship is between the two. It's a great point. Most people never think of that. In fact, I really hadn't, because I've never seen it that way before, frankly. So,
well, it never, I mean, say never. I shouldn't draw that black and white on it. Hardly ever does it ever get to the finish line on an actual done deal and a signed agreement to buy, when the two owners don't get along,
like each other. Yeah. I was in that recently, actually, where two companies, one's $40 million, one's $10 million. And the $10 million company is doing a lot of things right. Their profitability is higher than it's ever been. And all of a sudden they're like, you know what? That we're not on the same page about price anymore.
Yeah.
Our letter of intent, it's out the window. And it was, a lot of it was because they were just struggling to really break through and have a real relationship, and the $10 million company felt, I think, a lot like they were a family. And the other group is a company, and they don't have the same culture. And I think their approach was different. And so, all the things you just said.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think that a lot of people look at acquiring a business as this legal financial thing. Financials are a big part of it. But if you go into it thinking it's a negotiation battle, that might be the case in large business, where it's legal and large. Yeah, I can see that. If you're Elon Musk trying to buy Twitter, and but for the most part, when you're talking about small to mid-sized businesses, you shouldn't go into it thinking that. You
No,
should
because
be
you're
going into it being
person to
kind.
person.
Your business, your M&A company or broker, business broker should have been smart about the purchase price. And you can usually tell real quick by looking at the cash flow and discretionary earnings, like the bottom line. Is he being reasonable? If it was calculated properly, there is less negotiation in the actual acquisition. The only thing you might discuss is how long is the business owner going to stay on?
Yep.
What will be the
Pay
compensation?
out over time. I
Like
mean,
it's just a little mousy stuff that comes up.
yeah,
So for the most part, there
assets.
isn't this battle. If you don't like buying cars, like, I mean, I would think buying a used car would be like more of a battle than buying a company if it's done right. Um, it shouldn't be a lot of negotiation in that area. It's more of a communication and discussion,
Mhm.
and that's the chemistry I'm looking for. Can they do this and get along? And sometimes in the first meeting,
Mm.
you see it's not going to get along. I vet my clients. I vet for them. If I have somebody wanting to buy and they're not treating me appropriately, I can tell right away they're not going to treat my client appropriately. And
Yeah,
that's not going to be a deal that's actually going to ever get done. So I'm wasting my time. And I don't want to bother with that. I wanted to do
that's a really
business
good point.
with good people who have good intentions and who are going to see it through. I don't want to do business with that, in a situation where buyers and sellers are hating each other and it's a war. Um, Life's too short.
Yeah, I like where your head's at because it's like anything, buying a car is a great analogy. You don't want to do business with people you don't like. Just period. How good can this business possibly be if this asshole's involved? Right? Like I just you better have geniuses behind the curtain because that's for me personally. That's exactly what it would be like. I would be like,
Yeah.
nope, I'm not doing this. I don't want to sit in a room and figure this out, for weeks or months on end with somebody that I just don't like. Like I don't have to be in love with this person. I don't have to be best friends, but got to be some mutual respect. And if there isn't, I'm just like, I'm out. What's the point?
Yeah, most business owners that are they love their people, right?
Yeah.
That at the end of the day they might be burn out, but they like their people, or they like people in general. And
They almost always want to do right by either their family that's involved
yeah.
or their family because of the financial implications of them selling the business
Mhm.
or the people that have worked for them for years. Like
Yeah.
you hear it all the time.
Well,
Even if it's just talk, it's there. It's real.
yeah, they want to do right by him. And so when I was looking to sell my business, I looked at who I'm going to give them a gift. I'm giving my employees a gift. And the person I'm going to have, like, that's going to buy my company, the gift is themselves are going to be, I look for somebody who is a better leader than me. I wanted somebody better than me. Um, don't tell me that was going to be easy to find either, Trice. That's
No.
and and I
I'm
wanted
sure it
I
was
wanted
very
there to
difficult.
I wanted there to be more benefits, or more just better. I wanted to be better. And I think
Yep.
that's what everybody who sells their company wants. And so I do think those opportunities are there when you're patient and you look for them to find somebody who is going to do that exact thing. So
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest advantages when you sell is you can really get a good sense from a buyer if they are really good at some part of the business. You know, you've got agencies that are looking for buyers. If you sell it to a marketer who's really knows their stuff, man, what a great opportunity. There's automatic leverage and opportunity there. Or somebody that owns other agencies that specialize in different things or different industries. There's just a lot of opportunity there. And so, I think when you're a seller and you look at that, it's the same kind of thing. You're exactly right. You're like, man, is this person going to do right by our customers and by our business? And because we created something here, we have value. We value it in some way. And to employees, like one, especially with larger companies that come in and buy, one of the biggest things is you mentioned it before, benefits. You're like, are these people going to come in and offer our employees something we can't because they're just scale is different? 401ks are a great example, benefits, price point of benefits because now it's a bigger, there's just a lot in there. Um, Well, or, also other states, right? Other states have much stronger rules than some about the types of benefits you're required to offer, paid maternity or paternity, all kinds of stuff like that. So there could be a lot of wins right there that are just like not necessarily financially in your best interests or impact you at all,
Yeah.
but they definitely help people. And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, you know what? I can feel good about doing this and exiting. I know it's going to cause a lot of chaos and drama for my people, but at the end of the day, I feel really good and I can stand in front of them and say confidently, these people are going to take good care of them and they're
Yes.
going to offer them things I can't. And it's a good time to exit because of that.
Yeah.
I've reached sort of my limits of where I can go without significant investment in the business, which is a different scenario completely. So,
Yeah. I like that you're really bringing home like this point as the employee, what that looks like, because most people have that huge fear of change
yeah,
and new
well, it's
ownership. You
really
hear all
hard.
these bad stories and everybody getting let go and all this stuff. Those are very rare in the small to
Rare,
mid-sized business world. Very
100%.
rare that it happens like that. Those are big company types of things where departments get let go and all this other stuff. It doesn't
Yes,
happen very often.
it doesn't.
And
Yeah, I mean, big corporation buys big corporation. Well, just tell you the truth, it's going to take a while to figure out. You know, we here in Kansas City saw Sprint and T-Mobile. It took years for them to figure it out. They still are working on it now that T-Mobile's acquired Sprint.
yeah,
But Sprint went through the layoff process of people way before T-Mobile got involved. That because they were hurting. So,
yeah,
it wasn't the same here, but that's typically how it is with big corporations. They've got to figure out like which team's going to do what and do they need all these people and all that stuff, but it takes a long, long time. Small businesses, the truth is, they need all those people. That's why they bought it, because there's leverage, there's opportunity, there's scale, there's customers to satisfy. You can't do that without manpower, especially in this climate where we're in a talent crisis, basically. So, you buy businesses and in my mind, you buy them for four reasons. There's customers to be had somewhere, and they've got them. So let's go get them.
mhm,
There are great people over there that can do something that we can't do, or they can do something that in a place we can't do it, or an industry we can't do it. Let's go get them. Assets, physical assets. They have trucks, they have buildings, they have something I need, right? Or revenue, just the revenue itself. I need the profit.
yeah,
That's it, and I will look at it very softly, honestly, as a person, as a employee that's been on the other side, I will look at it more like, is this good for us? Or can we make this feel good for our employees and our customers?
right.
But the other side of it is, hey man, if those four things, if there's a couple of them in there that match really, really well, we should probably do that. Regardless of,
Yeah.
if it's a great fit or not. It probably is something we can make work. So
And that's a good wrap up. The only last one I'll add, which is the biggest reason why most business owners, small to mid-sized business owners do this. It's personal wealth. It's personal growth.
oh, well,
And
for
and,
sure.
and the advantages of doing it are so high that is when you have the opportunity. I've done it wrong and I've seen it done wrong so much that when I see the opportunity that I know of now in doing acquisitions, I think it's like it has to be a part of a growth strategy somehow, some way in any business that's a profitable business that's building wealth. Is
Yeah.
you have to look at an acquisition because you can turn your $100,000 salary into a $200,000 salary. Your 150,000 you can change to 300,000. You can make a lot more money than you're taking home now and have more of a team to help you do it. Have tax write-offs, and there's just the benefits they roll and they keep going. I could name them all day. There's just so many. So yeah, it might seem like a hassle. That'll be short term. And I promise you, if you got a good broker or M&A company, like it isn't that big of a hassle. They do a good job for you. It's not that difficult,
Yeah.
but the long-term benefits definitely are there. So
Yeah.
that's
I
all.
think, I think another good topic for us would be brokers that can represent both sides and whether because like you and we've talked about this a ton, like
Mhm.
your situation and how you're working with your customers. So, there's a bunch of topics in here we can open up later on in other episodes, and I think we should, because there's a lot of opportunity here, and I don't see a lot where business owners are getting this kind of information from people that
Yeah.
live it every day.
Well, I think you get it from somebody's already decided they want to sell or buy, and now they're looking for this information.
Yep.
But when you're thinking about growth strategy and building personal wealth and company wealth, when you're thinking about, a lot of people turn to marketing and sales topics. And
Yep.
so that's why it was introduced today as a topic of growth through acquisition. Is I want to get it out there more. Like this is something that's really overlooked far too often as growth strategy and wealth strategy. So if you're interested in any more of that, DM me on LinkedIn and let me know that you're interested in finding out more about any of the topics we discussed. I'd be happy to just have a discussion with no obligation to that. And tune in to future episodes where I know that we're going to talk more about mergers and acquisitions as part of a growth strategy and some of the ins and outs of that. So that's all I have for the day. Any final notes, Trice?
No, we're good.
All right.
Good
Thanks.
topic.
Tune in next week, and we will razzle and dazzle you again with some unique topics. Thanks.
Take care.